本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? It's Monday, December 14th, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 367. I'm your host, Austin Walker, joined today by Gita Jackson.
Hello, I'm Gita.
And Ricardo Contreras.
It's Monday.
It sure is. It feels like it.
An extremely a Monday today.
Only the three of us today, so it'll be a shorter one, probably. We'll see. Maybe we go long by mistake. It happens, you know? How's everyone doing? How's everyone's weekend? How was everyone's... God, I guess the thing that didn't get talked about last week, I missed the last podcast, but unless you could see the future, I'm guessing you didn't talk about the Game Awards.
No, none of us were clairvoyant at that time.
At that point, have we become that since?
Yes, I've since gained clairvoyance, but at that time, hadn't happened yet. Yeah, it's my Hanukkah gift from David.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Nice
he's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, we made, mostly this weekend, I cleaned the entire house and then made vegan latkes with homemade vegan sour cream, which I'm very proud of.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
It was really good.
So I guess we should talk at least briefly about the Game Awards.
The Game Awards.
You know, the Game Awards.
I
think we were all clairvoyant in one way, in that understanding that The Last of Us 2 was going to sweep whatever it was in.
Despite the fact that, including Best Direction, which, Gita, before we started the podcast, you were saying, like, the thing that I think a lot of people have said at this point, but, you know, you were echoing it, was like, don't give Best Direction to studios that have crunch and that have stories of sexual, misconduct being kind of swept under the rug as quickly as possible. Those are not the hallmarks of Best Direction.
Yeah, I think we can see from Ethan Gack's really, I'm sorry for slaughtering your last name, buddy, for Ethan's really good coverage of the Ubisoft sexual assault scandals and sexual harassment scandals, that anytime you see this in a company, that behavior, people take their cues from the top about what is or is not permissible. Yeah. And so ultimately, it is a failure of leadership when you see that happening at any company, and also when you see crunch conditions happening at any company. This weekend, I tweeted, just because I started thinking about the retail and food service jobs I've had where we've experienced, something that is basically crunch, when we're all cramming to finish things at the last minute. Every single time that's happened, that's been because of bad management, bad leadership, and it's led to everyone being miserable and stressed out. And also everyone doing a worse job because they're extremely tired. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you were the one this weekend who was saying, like, have you ever had a group assignment at school?
Yes.
And no one does it for weeks. And then you spend all weekend trying to, this is not a, and I want to be clear. I understand that to some degree what we're talking about is apples and oranges. Let me say that from the position of someone who has worked on long-term projects that do have extensive crunch periods at the end, you get worse shit. Shit. And when you take the time to instead, either budget appropriately to begin with, or slam on the brakes, or cut stuff so that you can fit stuff into what your
or say,
time
hey,
budget
we're not going to meet this deadline.
We're not going to.
Yeah,
we're not going to, and we're not going to rush to meet the next one. We're going to have to revise what we're reaching for here. All sorts of things like that. Like the outcome tends to be better in my experience.
So that's what leadership is. That's what being a boss is. People think that being a boss means that you get to make all the wild creative decisions. No, being a boss means that you have to have some element of managerial skill also. And that means knowing how to adequately schedule things and get things organized behind the scenes so crunch conditions do not happen. If you are a boss that allows crunch to happen, that I do not feel like I would be, I don't think there's any conditions in which I could call you a good boss.
Right. And the other thing here is that, and that's exactly it, right? Because this is, an award like this is an explicit claim about being a good boss. That is what Best Direction means. It was, hey, you did a good job being a boss over this game. Yeah. And you know, I've said this before. I will say it again. We do not know how things are done across the industry in other studios. I don't know that the folks at Square Enix did not have to crunch also for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't know what the conditions were like at Sucker Punch. We've read about stuff at Supergiant. It seems nice, but like I'm also genuinely and generally skeptical in general about the way in which anytime a company talks about how its own internal stuff is, and that's not me, you know, saying fuck Greg Kasavin. It's just like, hey, if I'm generally speaking, it is hard for me to just default to a position. It's like, well, I'm sure the people who made Final Fantasy VII didn't crunch. I bet they fucking did.
I bet they did. That game took fucking forever to come out.
Right, but in the cases where we know that crunch happened, we should probably go out of our way not to deliver that award as
we can still
a group of critics.
That the game is good, right? We can still say that we enjoyed the experience, but to say that it is the best direction of the year, I think we need to have more like a broader understanding of what that means rather than just like the game. That adds the signaling to the rest. Like, if we're going to think about the Game Awards as we do the Oscars every year is a narrative about what Hollywood thinks about itself that year, more so than it is awarding the best movie of the year. So on the year when The Artist won, for instance, you knew the minute that ceremony started that it was going to be The Artist because they had old-timey, like, popcorn girls walking down the aisles and shit, you know?
Like that's where they are. Right.
Yeah, that's the story about making movies that they're going to tell this year. You know, that's the one they want to celebrate. If we're going to treat the Game Awards in the same way, then what we're essentially saying is industry-wide, we don't care about sexual harassment scandals and we don't care about crunch. And I think that's fucked up.
Yeah. It's so frustrating because, you know, I want people to be, and this is a difficult thing that comes up in conversations around crunch and around, you know, bad labor practices, around the sexual harassment and misconduct scandals at Ubisoft, where you have people on teams saying, no, please still support us because we are making things we love. We're glad that, you know, this person is not at the company anymore because he made my life fucking hell. I'm glad he's gone, but like I really worked hard on Assassin's Creed Valhalla and I want you to play it. And it's tough because I get that stuff, but I think this is a pretty clear line drawing thing for me is like, we can, you know, if we want to hem and haw about, do you support products that come out of broken companies? Because how do we know what company is actually broken? And, you know, and, you know, you want to make space for people who say, again, you know, please support us, even though our bosses are shitty. Where I think it's safe to draw the line is we should not award shitty bosses. I think that's a pretty, I think that's I'm going to say it's pretty uncontroversial. Don't worry. It will be controversial. Yeah. Someone will clip this and send it to people to get mad at me for saying that. Neil's actually a great boss. If you read these 3 interviews, it says that he's a great boss. Like, all right, we just have different metrics. Yeah.
Boy.
So, anyway, what were your favorite advertisements from the Game Awards?
Oh, you mean the 2-hour advertisement show? I'm struggling to think about what happened at the Game Awards this year, which is wild because I feel like every year there's been something totally bonkers that has made the show, like, weirdly unforgettable. Like, it's felt at least like the award show belonged to me in some way, you know, like I feel like
I just want Gillette Man back. I feel like we haven't had a Gillette Man moment in forever.
Or the moment where like a senior Nintendo employee appeared in Link cosplay.
Yeah. Cado, you said you had that. One. Yeah, please. Cado, what was yours?
I had one because it stuck out. It looked great. Season.
Oh, okay. Not where I thought you were going.
No.
But yeah, season did stick out and did look great.
Like, just like the aesthetic of it, and it's just like very, I feel like
kid on a bike, looking at animals, taking photos,
very much a like illustration aesthetic. It's kind of it's hard to describe because it's not quite it's like cell shaded in places, but then like almost painterly in like certain backgrounds and stuff. It's a very cool look. And yeah, you're the main character is a black kid on a bike who's going around and documenting things with his camera and a field audio recorder. And apparently those are like the 2 kind of main mechanics. And I'm just like
so down.
Waypoint radio fan right there.
Yeah, it really
the main
is.
character is a black kid on a bike. That's point number one.
Yeah. old like handheld video camera and analog like tape deck with a microphone attached to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Big glasses. Yeah, no, this is great.
Super excited.
down.
That does actually refresh my memory a little bit. And Open Roads, the new game from Fulbright, looks really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Shout outs to Fulbright. I'm excited to see what Fulbright brings us next.
You know,
because
Carrie Russell
I was
voicing
gonna say
one of
Carrie
the
Russell.
mom.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I also really like the combination 3D animation and 2D animation that they're doing in
Yeah,
this. That
that
looked
was
really
neat.
interesting.
That was really neat. Yeah, I did not expect that. Cado, I was so sure that you were going to say the time Mario got killed.
This time Mario
By
got
Sephiroth.
Mario and Luigi are
Mario's
both dead
fucking
now.
dead. They're both
Sephiroth
dead.
killed them.
Different Smash announcements.
Yeah. Wow, they're all both the Mario brothers are there. If I was Waluigi and Wario, I would go from after the first one, I'd be celebrating. You know what I mean? You're like, one down, let's go. And the second one drops, and it wasn't from you; it was from Sephiroth. You got to be like, all right, we got to lay low. I don't know how far this is gonna go. They're out for all of us.
All the
God.
Oreos. I think that it's surprising to me that of the Kingdom Hearts characters that exist, they put in Sephiroth instead of Sora at this point, because now there's two Kingdom
I was
Hearts
pretty
characters,
sure
but
we were
it's
going to get a
not.
Sora. Yeah.
I mean, I know that all Smash players are happy about anotwer sword fighter, so maybe you guys can get a final a Fire Emblem character, you know, after this.
So funny.
I'm really curious, given how fucking huge his sword is, though, like what that's going to play out as.
It's like half of all of the stages.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah,
you
you
just
can't play
skewer
it
all
to
your
a Mega
enemies.
mode.
Is that his down B? Like,
Yeah.
God.
I'm not sure
It's
if
actually
they
just
announced...
when he's holding it up, it's another platform you can jump on.
Right.
Oh,
can,
great.
You can stand on it. Yeah. I don't think they've announced their like walkthrough just yet, so we don't have like specific mechanical details on how he plays. But soon enough,
I'm
they'll
not
do
a
the thing that they
technical-
always do, where Sakurai sits down and like goes like frame by frame. Here's what this does. Here's what this does. So
I'm not a technical player at all for Smash. I really do treat it as a party game, but I love those showcases so much.
They're so fun.
They're
He
really
just
fun.
knows the game back inside and out, and you learn like you learn all these incredible development details, and then just to watch him play, I suddenly like aggressively understand why people treat this as a serious fighting game, because he's
Totally.
just so fucking good at it.
Totally. The you know, we talked some BioWare stuff because there are two BioWare things here. There's
Oh,
Dragon
right.
Age 4,
We-
time to
we-
smash the egg.
We saw a glimpse of the evil egg, and
The egg appeared.
egg.
and
And I
we
say
heard
smash
we
because I wanna
heard
be
Varric's
neutral.
voice also. is
Varric,
the other
Varric
thing.
spoke. You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
So
I
we
say
know
smash the
Varric is
egg
going to be in this game
because I
and
know
we
there are people who want to smash the egg and there are people who
blue?
want to smash the egg. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yes. Yeah, fair.
I think both are allowed to listen to this podcast. I'm not here to say, you know, your egg kink.
Oh,
It's bad.
smash
Yeah.
the egg.
Listen, we all
It's money.
There's an egg-like character. For people who have no idea what we're talking about, there's an egg-like character in the Dragon Age series who is a piece of shit. IMO.
he's just a bald-headed elf who is condescending to you all the time. It's like they really did write a character that I would have wanted to sleep with at 16 and that I would have wanted to ruin their life when I was 24. You know?
Totally.
They wrote a Warped Tour bassist, essentially.
Yes.
You know,
Yes,
the guy in the book in the
100%.
rhythm section, he's not a drummer but he reads books, but just thinks he's smarter than all these kids who are at Warped Tour. Yeah. But you're
God.
not smarter than the kids at Warped Tour.
Well,
You're
the thing
at
is-
Warped Tour.
The thing is, he predates a Warped Tour. This is the thing that you learn in
Right.
Dragon Age Inquisition
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
he's actually from like a foundational band that everyone's forgotten about, and everyone like he's like, you don't understand. All
We're
of you-
telling
you know,
the
you're
story
playing
of
your
Cobra
power
Starship
chords.
right now.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
It's Gabe Saporta.
God. And this trailer showed there's some big turtles, there's some magical kingdom looking places. Like
Yeah.
literally one of the places in that trailer just looks like the Magic Kingdom. But I don't think that's Tevinter. I think Tevinter is the one that looks like a solar punk, or not a solar punk, sorry, a magic punk, like neon magic emblems and stuff everywhere, and some flying castle, like round ring castle thing in the sky. I don't know. It looks like, you know.
looked neat. And
Go ahead.
I mean, based on previous coverage from Jason Schreier about the development of Dragon Age 4, We know a little bit. Like, they did not give away any plot details, which of course not. And it does make me worry just because I know the development of Dragon Age 4 has been a little bit troubled.
It's a
and that
mess, is my understanding.
They don't know.
It has been a mess in the past. I don't know
they
how
don't
it is now. Hopefully
really know what they're going to do. But I feel like in this teaser, they at least gave some indication that they now solidly know what story they want to tell. And they know what characters are involved. And that feels important to me. Like, they said explicitly, like, the main character in this game is not going to be your previous Inquisitor or any of the previous characters in Dragon Age you've played. And it is not going to be someone who's the recipient of an old a prophecy or anything like that. It's not a chosen one. They implied strongly that it's going to be a thief. So that idea of heists that has been in and out of development, especially because they used Varric, who is a person who steals things, as the character. He's a jovial little thief with a lot of chest hair. It does seem like maybe they are going to go back to that previously mentioned development idea, or at least are playing with the idea of characters who are not noticed by the upper classes in the society, which I'm interested in. So who knows what this game is going to be? I just really want to kill Solus so much.
so bad.
I hate it, guys.
The other big BioWare thing was a Mass Effect trailer for whatever their next Mass Effect thing is. It opened with showing both galaxies, both the Andromeda Galaxy and the Milky Way, which they have since said like, we showed both of those for a reason, which maybe that reason is like, because we had games set on both of those galaxies, but my guess is that there's some sort of ancient alien architecture that's going to end up connecting those two stories together. And then we kind of like zoomed through the world or through the galaxy, through the Milky Way galaxy, past like some space debris, and eventually landing on a planet where someone who looked like Liara was dusting off an N7 like nameplate thing, and then standing up while there's a Krogan in the back talking to two other people. Maybe it's not Liara, but I don't know. I think that's a Liara reveal to me. And that's whatever. And Mass Effect will continue, and so we'll see. We'll see about that. Y'all heard Casey Hudson, who was general manager at this point, and then the executive producer of DA4, Mark Dara, both are leaving BioWare as of last week, which currently puts DA4, I believe, in the hands of, Christian Daly, who I thought was the person handling the Anthem relaunch, which to me, maybe it's time. Like my hope here is, hey, it's time to switch over. It's time for me to move over to there. And then also, Anthem is in good hands here and blah, 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 blah. But right. I don't know. I don't think that's come out from Christian or from anybody else. Christian put up a note that was like, thanks to everyone who's leaving, who did a great job, and I worked with y'all, and y'all are great. And in general, I want to be clear that I think that I've seen some fan response to these folks leaving that was like really mean, not to them, but to like in a way that's like to the rest of the company that can be, or the rest of the staff that's left behind. Also, did y'all see that? We're in like gossip hour now, but did you see that? What the fuck is that character's name? I think he voiced both Anders, and then he also goes on to voice. It's the one that Ash Parrish wrote all that fanfic about that she now has to delete. Oh no, did that happen? She wrote a really great blog that's like this fuckhead's like actual opinions is making me think that I should delete all my fanfiction about this character. It's the guy with the big furry collar. The furry collar man. Why the fuck am I blanking on this? I don't know, but I'm blaming this. Colin? Is it Colin? Is it Colin? It's Colin. It's Colin. It's Colin. It's Colin. Yes. Colin Powell? Colin. Yeah. Colin. Colin Rutherford. There we go. We made it. Yeah, this is like a new I can't say it separately from. It does sound like I'm saying colon. It does. Like Colin Powell. I did immediately think you were saying Colin. Edward Cullen. Edward Cullen is in this game. Yes. This is a tri-state accent that voice, issue. Yeah, you're right. We're both struggling. For real. That dude's voice actor fucking went off on a alt-right, far right cancel culture is real, ridiculous bullshit thing at Mark Dara, the guy who's leaving BioWare, in a way that like, long video that was terrible and that was using a bunch of BioWare music, which to me always felt like you're drawing a target on your back to get a takedown notice so that you can play the victim in your video, in which that video was him in doing the voice of Cullen, talking about the voice actor in the third person and talking about how he was coming under attack from the SJWs. And it's just like, bruh, you missed the train. Like,
I mean, also, okay, here's the thing. Cullen's like entire character arc is about him being a little bitch baby that learns how to have a backbone. Like, he spends the first game being a little little coward.
He's in the first game.
And then in the second game, he's a guard at Kirkwall who also is a coward, who like falls in love with the maid. If you are a mage, a female human mage, she will fall in love with you, but to be too much of a coward to break ranks from the Templars. And the third game is all about him growing a backbone, finally.
Also, I'm looking at images here, and in DA1, in Origins and 2, he's got that like old Justin Timberlake ramen hair vibe
Oh, God,
going on.
yeah. He only got hot in the third game, and it's all about that coat, honestly.
The coat helps a lot.
Yeah.
It's true.
And he's still the only, like, if you're going to romance a guy in that game, why are you not romancing Iron Bull? He's Freddie Prinze Jr.
Extremely hot. Yeah, he's Freddie Prinze Jr. He's big.
He's a large man who just will tenderly treat you to the best sex of your life.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Absolutely. It's true. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. I don't know why you'd want anything other than that.
Blackwall, and like, I just don't get it. I just don't get the Blackwall love.
The story
I get Dorian. I get it.
Dorian, I get, obviously. I want to replay the game as a male character so I can romance Dorian. Fuck, I've actually just now, by saying that out loud, committed
you willed it into the world.
Yes, God damn it, I can't I was looking at the games to install, my PS4 games to install my PS5, and I like scrolled over Dragon Age Inquisition and like looked at my boyfriend and was like, I can't do that now. I can't do that at this stage in my life. David will just be sitting there like, baby, why are you crying over this cutscene? Also, you've been sitting here for like 25 hours straight. Like,
I guess I get it. He's like that, like, you know, scarred old knight, you know, who needs someone to take care of him or whatever.
And
thing.
it's
I get that's someone's
it's a
thing,
whole addiction story about the dependence on the files of whatever that they have as Templars. He's trying to quit. And I thought that's Cullen's story.
That's
Cullen's story.
No, yes. I get, that's what I'm saying. Is I get Cullen over. I in my mind, it's if the male love interests in Dragon Age Inquisition, and we're here. This is where we're supposed to be right now.
Yep.
Iron Bull.
Yes.
Dorian.
Yes.
And then is it just Blackwall and Cullen left? Is that and Solus? Oh, Solus.
And Solus, Solus.
You know, I'll put Solus above.
Solus is above everyone else because it's very well written, right?
It's very right, and it's a different. And it is important to the overarching narrative of that game. Yeah, right.
The stuff he tells the love interest, if you are his love interest, really radically changes his actions and like contextualizes his actions in the game.
Also, you could theoretically play through that whole game, romance him. If you're playing an elf, if you're playing an elf woman, and that's it, because he only fucks elves.
He's so fucking
he also
racist.
is like super judgmental about contemporary elves, modern elves. So he also sucks all the way.
I watched all the cutscenes of his romance, and all he does is tell you that everything you know about elf culture is wrong and you're an idiot. But he's like, well, I mean, modern elves are fine if they produced you. Is at some point what he says. Just like, have you ever been told by a white person that you're one of the good ones? Because I love having that button pressed in a romance plot.
It just hit me that Solus is Umar Johnson.
Fuck! Sorry, is Solus a fucking hotep? Solus out here talking about Dr. Sebi?
Yeah. Solus is also used to be king shit. Solus is on that, like, 100%. We used to treat elf women differently.
Yeah, God.
You know,
Fuck me.
God.
Ooh, Ellis actually listening to Tariq Nasheed.
This is for elves only. If you are not an elf, close this live stream.
Yeah.
Fuck. Anyway, Solus. Then I think it's in my mind, Bull, Dorian, and then this is the thing. Is like I don't get Blackwall. Like I want to put Blackwall. I want to put Blackwall at the bottom of this list.
I like the plot line. It's just that I don't find it romantic or attractive. Just I like this idea that you
there,
have sex with him and then he just disappears. You know,
right? That moment is sick. That moment in the plot is like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah, and I like his backstory too, like a lot. It's just that, like, I don't want to fuck that guy. I want to, like, be his best friend and be like, hey, buddy, it's going to be okay.
It's going to be all right. I hope. Yeah, totally. And also, my understanding is he and Josephine, they don't get together, but they have like a chivalric courtly romance thing going on.
He's so like cute and embarrassed whenever he's around her. It's very, very
That's
sweet.
Cute. I don't want to take that from them. That's nice.
Come on. It's like all those side characters in Stardew Valley, the ones that obviously are going to get together, where you're just like, I can't date these other guys now.
Come on.
Push them, just kiss.
Yeah, just kiss already.
Oh, what were we talking about? The Game Awards?
We're talking about the Game Awards, I guess. If you know why people like Blackwall, write in gamingadvice.com and tell us why. Also, I disclose, I did that Mass Effect stream a few months ago. So disclosure. Cover my own ass. Don't take everything I say with a grain of salt, etc.
Gucci gang.
Yeah, Gucci gang. That just means cover your ass, right? That's what that means. There's New Perfect Dark was debuted, and it's just it seems sick, but like I don't know that there's anything to talk about in that. It doesn't seem sick. What it seems like is a 2-minute long video that zoomed into a city with a big pyramid, and like that's all I can tell you about it. There's a new one coming. Ecological disaster, I guess, right? That's the premise was like man tried to play God and corporations tried to give us solutions, but the laws of nature aren't meant to be broken. Maybe we're all supposed to be wiped out by ecological disaster, I guess. I don't know.
I'm also reading the Area X trilogy, okay? I get it.
God, could you imagine actually if Perfect Dark went that direction? And you
oh my God, with a consultant Jeff Vandermeer on there.
Yeah, exactly. You're like going into the zone as Joanna Dark.
That would fucking rock. I just finished Authority last night, like literally last night.
I've not gotten to it yet.
Oh, it's a great story about how corporate bureaucracy in the government is not going to save us from climate change.
Oh, huh.
Yeah, and that it's the forces are beyond our control and are going to sweep up and destroy us while we're trying to figure everybody out. And you know what? That actually would be a great setting for a spy story, which essentially is Acceptance is. It's a story of a government agent trying to understand the ununderstandable. That would be great. But I mean, I know Steven Totillo is really excited about revisiting this world. And I know lots of people like really are still so hype on that first Perfect Dark game. But I do also wonder like, what is it though? What's going to go? What's going to happen? There's a lot of teasers at this. Oh gosh. There's another thing that happened that made me excited was the Disco
Disco Elysium,
the final cut where they're getting full voice acting.
Yeah.
Which seems incredible. I didn't want to listen to Dasha from Red Scare more, but I will have to.
You'll have to, unfortunately. Yeah, she fucking sucks so bad. She does a really good job in this game, and it sucks. When I got to the credits, I was like, that was, oh my God. I had no idea it was her when I was playing.
She just says weird Mad Libs things on Twitter where I feel like she's picking phrases out of a hat and then attributing them to white girls,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
She does do a great job.
Discourse. But given how good some of the voice acting in that game is, I'm excited to hear more. I heard that maybe those voice actors didn't get paid a lot in the initial release.
Well, I hope they paid them a lot more.
I fucking hope so. We'll see, especially for a game that has the politics that it has. So if you haven't played it and you've been curious, wait for this to come out because there's also a lot of the voice acting, especially for Harry's internal monologues, is so good that you need. When I say monologues, I don't mean Harry's own voice. I mean the voices inside the various skill voices. In Harry's head are all so fucking dope.
Yeah, in case you didn't know, the conceit of this game is that you play as a detective who has all these skills, but all these skills are like fully representative personalities within him. Yeah. And they will fight and they'll basically make their case to you about why you should play the game a certain way. It's a wildly creative game that's very, very fun to play. That I was hoping that the long rumored Switch release would be out for this because I do also really want to play this game while like David is watching baseball or something because it's very much it's also like very much a reading game and I have bad eyes.
Yeah, totally. That's fair.
Yeah, I think
It's
this is
also-
they're adding new quest lines too, which is really exciting, and it'll be a free update for everyone who already owns the game, which is great.
Mhm.
So if you do want to buy it now and check it out, that's fine because you'll get all the voice acting later.
I love it when a game justifies my procrastination to finish it.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's
totally.
like I enjoyed my
It
time
is-
with Disco Elysium. I got distracted and never went back to it. But now it's good because I could just
I was simply
do these
waiting
quests. Yeah.
Yeah. For the complete version, obviously.
Obviously.
Clearly.
That's exciting. And yeah, they did say it's coming to Xbox X and S and then Nintendo Switch sometime in the summer 2021. So that'll be it's on its way, which is good. Any other big things? The funniest one for me was not I guess the funniest one was the Ark survival sequel with starring Vin Diesel.
Just straight up, just looked at the screen, and David was like, "Is that Vin Diesel?" And I
Yeah.
was
That
like,
was Vin Diesel.
"Couldn't be." It was.
And then also there's a cartoon. The thing that
Absolutely.
ended up being funniest for me was the one that looked like Dead Space and actually has some Dead Space people on it. Did y'all hear what that game is set? What universe that game is set in?
What universe is that game set in?
The Callisto Protocol. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's like there's a guy in a prison cell, and then there's like a hologram, and then there's like a monster in the cell with him, and it looks like it's like the alien one face, and it's drooling, and there's another guy.
Yeah.
That's the PUBG universe.
Oh, sick. The guy who works in my bodega, the 16-year-old that works in my
excuse me?
bodega is going to be psyched for that.
Uh-huh.
What the
What's up,
fuck?
Cado? You don't remember the part in PUBG where the alien goes like, rah, and then there's a guy who's scared?
Yeah. Remember that
It
part?
takes place
Hold
3
on.
centuries in the future, but it's the same universe. This is
oh
dead
my
ass. This
fucking god!
Listen,
really?
I want to see the
Wow.
PUBG timeline. I want to see that PUBG timeline. Show it to me.
Yeah.
I hope make it as fucked up as the Zelda timeline. A helicopter just
God.
went over my house, and
Three-
it was so close that my floor was shaking. Just so you know.
Oh my god.
Normal
Okay.
city.
Normal city.
Yeah.
3 centuries.
That's so funny.
They've really
I
given themselves
bet.
a lot of road ahead for PUBG updates. You know.
Yeah, listen, you're going to be the most popular game forever. Excuse me, what's that? We're not any. Oh, he. Okay. A couple other things. Road 96 seems to be a game about. It looked like people were saying, "Oh, it's a road trip game," but to me, it seemed very much like a "we have to get the fuck out of this country" game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am
and so
interested in
it's a
games that
hitchhiking
deal
game.
with border politics. And especially
Yes.
a game that deals with border politics in a fictional setting. I feel like when you deal with it in a literal setting, you do get bogged up into the very actual complicated laws regarding this stuff. In a fictional setting, we can just talk about the thing that we know is morally true, which is that there should not be any borders.
Yeah, well, the other thing here too is like there is a degree to which it's like when you're doing it with a real setting, there's a lot of stuff that you can get extremely wrong, and at that point you're talking not about hypotheticals or metaphor or moral, but about people's lives in a way that is like, you know, that stuff is a little touchier, let's say. But this game also reminded me very much of like this had big what the fuck is the name of the studio that made
Ooh,
wow, why am I blanking on both of these things?
It's Monday.
That made, oh my god, this is bad. My brain is breaking.
Don't
my
Nod?
a
brain is
very
degrading.
good game.
Not Don't Nod.
Okay. No.
First person Firewatch.
Firewatch.
I had
Yeah,
to talk
yeah,
about
yes,
it.
there we go.
It had big
Yeah.
what was the name of their studio? Why am I blanking on Firewatch's?
No, because they immediately got swallowed up by Valve.
Campo Santo.
Very
Shout outs to the Campo folks. I had big Campo Santo vibes, or also big Virginia vibes.
Oh, yeah. It reminded
in terms
me-
of first person story based, you know, walking from vignette to vignette type thing.
A little bit also in sort of the decisions you're making about whether or not to trust people and how dangerous it portrays, like getting in cars, accepting help from others. The game I also can't remember the name of, but the one that came out on Apple Arcade early and was about a road trip, but it was like a post-apocalyptic situation.
Why am I blanking on this?
We
What
wrote
was
about
that?
it. Cado, I think you might have written about it.
I believe you. I believe you that this exists. We're
I
really
remember
on one
trying
today.
to
It's
play it on
Monday.
my phone on Apple Arcade
Wasn't-
and just being like, this is not a game that was meant for phones.
Wasn't Overland, was it?
It was Overland.
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
I forget the name of that game because of a very silly reason. It's because whenever I say Oberlin, Overland is what everyone thinks I am saying. Yeah. So
Right, sure.
I can't, it doesn't stick in my brain because I just am like, oh, you mean Oberlin?
Yeah. God. All right. I feel like those are the big things. You know, there's other
like
stuff
the
there,
actual
but people don't
awards
look those
didn't
up.
really matter, right? Like they all went to The Last of Us because part of the vote for this award ceremony is a popularity contest, which doesn't make any fucking sense because there are no unions in the video game industry. So you can't have unions vote amongst their own, on the work of their peers like you do at the Oscars.
I think this is just critics who vote for most of these categories with like fan votes on certain things.
Yeah.
And that's the thing it is. This is yeah.
I mean, that is also like, it's just not a very good way to run an award show, personally saying. I think it's more interesting to see what professionals in the industry would award their peers, And Hades lost everything it was up for.
The DICE Awards do that?
I think so. Yes, I think the DICE Awards does do that.
So, and then like obviously things like the IGF and there's the other GDC award. GDC, is there just a GDC award? Is that the?
I think they do have some selective awards, but I have never been to GDC and never will, so I don't really know what they do. But it is just sort of like I do want to just point out that it really sucked to watch the show and to see Hades be up for all these categories and to lose every single one of them. And I know that awards do not matter, but it sucks.
Did it just win Indie? Is that the only thing it won?
Yeah, it won the equivalent of the best screenplay award, essentially. It really just like that was such a special game, and that one that was so unexpected, and one that was massively popular.
Wait. It did win one other one that I think is like legit a big win, which is it won Best Action Game, beating Doom Eternal and Half-Life.
Okay, fair. I will be less of a negative Nancy then. That was really, really good. I just think it deserved to sweep.
The thing is, you wouldn't have known that because they probably blew through that award super quick, and no one was able to receive the award.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, that just shows a different issue with this fucking award ceremonies, that the awards themselves sometimes get blown by so quickly that you're like, what's happening? Here's another ad. Okay, I guess we're at another ad now.
Well, so David, when we were watching this, pointed this out, that in the Oscars, even for the movies that are obviously not going to win the best picture, they make sure to honor each of those films specifically during the show. In this award ceremony, they really only honored The Last of Us 2 with that really boring Eddie Vedder performance. And that was it. And then at that point, you sort of knew how things were going to go. And like that just kind of is a boring show to watch. The
performance is kind of a gimme, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like that really long speech from Troy Baker about how Neil Druckmann sang that song to his daughter every night, which I'm sure is very meaningful for those two people, but does not mean anything to me at all.
Let me highlight a couple other awards that I was happy with. Best debut game went to Phasmophobia, which I was so sure that was. I guess the rest of that group is not like huge, super, splashy games. But Phasmophobia, I was playing Phasmophobia last night. That game still absolutely just whips ass.
Yeah.
And then I really am happy that Animal Crossing won Best Family. Animal Crossing this year is a great game. And also, real quick, the only other musical performance, which was only there, which kind of had to bounce between different games, did play the Animal Crossing music, and it did make my heart swell in a way that I did not expect, because I forgot how good that music is, and it's so good.
When the London Philharmonic started doing the orchestral version of the Hades music, that was a point where I was like, oh, Hades meant a lot more to me than I thought it did this year. And then they transitioned into Animal Crossing, and I was like, oh, Animal Crossing took me out of a dark place this year.
Totally. I will also say that the one Last of Us award that I was like, damn, okay, was the accessibility one. That game does have sick accessibility options, and the two people who were accepting that award, who apparently were neighbors, and one of them was standing behind the window of the other, the other person's room. Well, that was very cute and good. Mm-hmm. That was, shout outs to those folks. Also, shout outs to fucking Sean Murray from No Man's Sky, Hello Games, accepting an award he very clearly did not think he was going to accept, as they won Best Ongoing Game.
Of downing a beer when they said No Man's Sky.
It was very funny. It was extremely funny. So yeah, that's the Game Awards. Again, there's more awards, there's more stuff to go, more announcements and stuff.
Really short this year too, I noticed. Usually we're up till midnight. Last year I was up till midnight at least. And then I accidentally bought Mario Party instead of Smash because I was so fucking tired.
Yeah. people kept saying during the day, like, or during that event, like, oh, we had such a special year this year. Like, did we? Is that our euphemism for this? Is a special year?
A year unlike any other.
A year unlike any other. We got through it by playing video games. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
We did get through it. We were all going through it.
We were all going through it.
Yeah,
that's true.
A year in which we all posted through it.
Yes. We should take a break, and then when we come back, we can talk about some stuff we've played. We will BRB. All right, we are back to talk about some stuff we've been playing. I'm going to start with something heartwarming and good, because I feel like maybe we need that right now in our lives, in our games, etc. I played all of Alba, a wildlife adventure last night, which is the latest game from Us2, the studio that previously brought you Assemble with Care. And I want to say they also made Monument Valley. Was that Us2?
Yeah.
Yes, that was Us2.
Two games I fucking love.
Yeah, This is a game in which you are a little girl. I want to say probably 12, somewhere in there, 12, between 11 and 13, but probably between 12 and 14, because there's a scene in the beginning and then there's a jump 10 years later. And I can't imagine that you're 1 year old in the scene at the beginning, because you're walking around and you take a photo. So, at least a toddler in that scene. You are a little girl who loves nature, and you are visiting your grandparents on a little island in the Mediterranean. I believe my read on it is Spain. It's Spanish. It's not a specific island. The biomes that are there, the areas that are there, are kind of more far ranging than you might think. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all these animals could appear at the same place. Maybe I'm wrong. And you were there to just hang out with your grandparents and check out some wildlife. And then you get a note that the mayor has a big announcement to make. And so you and a bunch of the other people in this kind of small community go to the nature reserve, which is kind of busted up. There used to be walkways and picnic benches and stuff like that. And all of that stuff has been kind of, dilapidated over the years. But don't worry, because the mayor has an announcement to make, and there's a person there in a suit. And what the guy in the suit says is, we're going to build the biggest hotel in the world here on your island, right here on top of this already failing nature reserve. Don't worry about it. The nature reserve is already failing anyway. It's fine. It's time to move on. And you, as a 12-year-old with a chip on your shoulder, decide, no, abso-fucking-lutely not. I love the animals. I am going to save this place. And so what you end up doing is, for, the next few hours, let me see how much time I put into it. I put 3.7 hours into this game to beat it. And it is on Steam at $14 right now. You walk around, you help people pick up trash, you identify various animals. There's like 60 animals on the island that you can identify. Most of them are birds, but there's also some squirrels and a couple of different other land animals. And you're trying to identify them all. You're trying to find them across all the different habitats that you can wander between. There's like a kind of little beachside city area. There are some homes up in the terraces. There's an old ruined castle. There are some swamps and some rice fields. There's a bunch of different beaches and stuff. It's like a little open world game, and you're running around, and over the course of play, you end up getting, certain abilities like being able to repair bridges or bird feeders, being able to help heal animals who are sick. It is so warm and pleasing, and the music is great. Everything has this very I cannot place this particular musical touchstone. The thing that my head goes to is early Wes Anderson stuff, but it's not that. It's it isn't that, but it's something adjacent to that, where it's lots of strumming guitars and people doing kind of harmonizing in the background as you're running around the town and the island. It's so nice. People should look at
on a scale of
footage.
1 to Bon Iver. How Bon Iver is
it's in that space. It's in that space, but it's poppier. Do you know what I mean? It's more like
yeah. It's Bon Iver working with Taylor Swift. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
There was like a very particular touchstone that I could not put my finger on while I was playing it, and it was driving me up the wall. So if someone does notice what it is, let me know on Twitter or something. Because
Mumford and Sons.
It might be Mumford and Sons. In my mind, it predates it. In my mind, we're talking about. I guess.
So we're talking about alt country, really.
We're talking about. I wouldn't go alt country because I don't think it's uniquely an American sound.
Okay. Right.
Do you know what I mean? I think
I
this
do
is
know
like
what you mean now. Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to the trailer really quick, you will hear what I'm talking about, right? If you just hit play here, I think it's here where it's like there's like a very particular jangly indie like vibe.
Oh, it sounds like Beirut.
It does sound like Beirut a little bit. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, there was a 2012-ish indie scene that used a lot of muted trumpets and stuff like that.
100%.
Yeah, that's where it's drawing from. I remember 2012 because that's the year I graduated from college.
Well, there you go. Yeah. that'll do it, huh? And so that is very much the vibe. 100%.
It looks so pleasant and
it's
relaxing.
So pleasant. And there's drama, there are twists and turns. There's
we love that.
A rare animal that you can't find. There's, it at the end of the thing, you might be surprised this game that is clearly for kids to some degree wraps up very cleanly. But it's nice. And I had a great time playing it. I think I did everything there is to do in this game. So that's that almost 4 hours mark was very much me being like, I'm going to get all of the achievements. I'm going to see every animal. I'm going to, and it's really fun because you have a book that like gives you what the animals look like, and then you can hit a button to hear what they sound like. And I absolutely had to use their calls to locate them more than once. And that's a fun thing. So
that is fun. I love stuff like that.
It's called
you. Yeah.
Alba, a wildlife adventure. Go ahead. Sorry, I did not mean to step on your.
Oh, don't worry about it. I just really love stuff, game mechanics like that, where you're forced to learn something. To totally. Really engage with the environment of the game to the degree that you engage with it in the same way you engage with life. To the idea that you could take that skill of learning a bird call outside of that game, right? Yeah,
it's also extremely funny. Like it's the game. I should note, like, has some really like cleverly written characters who have, I don't want to say like larger than life, attitudes or whatever, but it's definitely like, all right, here's the dude who's always streaming. Here's the dude like live streaming himself on his phone while he's at the beach. There's one kid who is angry all the time, and he talks in all caps and has like a very angry face. And so at one point I fixed something for him, and he was still all capsing, and so he just says, "This is so much better now," but he still has on the angry face. I'm trying to upload this, but my upload speed is very bad, despite this only being 1.35 megabytes. So that's not what I want. Let me just, what if I just take a different screenshot and see if this one will go faster? No, it won't. No. Anyway, it's fine. Shout outs to Juanito, who is angry all the time. It is what it is, Juanito. So yeah, that's the cute small thing I've been enjoying. Have y'all been playing anything?
I have not. So this weekend was dedicated to cleaning my entire apartment. So
that's
Cado.
The most important game.
Oh man, my bathroom is I mopped the freaking floors, dude. It smells so good in there right now. Yeah.
Nice.
I played a small thing.
What'd you play?
Thing kind of feels like the opposite mood wise from Alba, called Unto the End.
Oh, I really wanted to play that this weekend. Oh, also my picture of Juanito just sent. I hope you enjoy this child who looks angry.
I love this child.
Very good.
Yeah, I said Unto the End. Unto the End, 3 words.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a trailer for that, and I really wanted to play it. There's a trailer like that came out like 3 weeks ago where sometimes you watch a trailer and you go like, damn, why can't I do blank in this game? And then the trailer, in this case, the trailer anticipated me saying that. I was like, well, actually, you super can. Do you want to set up what this game is, and then I'll explain the thing that I was like, hey. So yeah.
So it's a 2D side scrolling sort of guess you could say combat focus given what the controls are like, but there's actually some surprising things around that where it's a very kind of simple shapes. It takes this very zoomed out perspective where your character's kind of small on the screen, that the like sense of scale is very interesting. Like you feel like the wilderness is so much larger obviously than you as an individual. And you are playing basically this little like vaguely Nordic of some sort, I guess. Like warrior who's trying to make his way back home. You're like stuck in a sort of like snowy wilderness, and you're making your way through caves, over land, over mountains, and there's these like essentially Yeti looking monsters of varying sizes and colors, and the combat is very it's hard to describe. Well, actually, start with the basis of Nidhogg. If you know how Nidhogg plays, it has this kind of like high-low attack and like high-low blocking situation where like
there's no mid, it's just high or low.
Yeah, in this one it's just high or low. Okay. Yeah, Nidhogg has that kind of third option, but Nidhogg also moves very quickly in a way because you have that fast respawn and you're like kind of just going at it. Right. This is a little more much slower and deliberate, and you have a couple other like moves. But so you start there where it's like wherever an enemy is attacking or where you're attacking, like if they're blocking in that direction, obviously they can then like counter. If they're attacking in the same direction, you kind of do a little clash, and everything in the game is kind of like on base, like there's one menu and everything else is kind of diegetic in a way that was surprising kind of for what I like had seen of the trailers. I was expecting a kind of more standard, like I'm going to be fighting everything I come up against. And it turns out there's actually a few times when there are other interactions you can do, despite the fact that there are very few like other verbs.
Yeah, so that was the thing that the trailer that I was watching, like exactly the thing you just said. So the trailer that I was watching was like 3 minutes long, was like a developer narration thing. And the first like minute is like all the fighting stuff. And I was like, this shit is cool. Like I like this fighting stuff. Like it's well animated. Like I like the variation on the Nidhogg style here. And there's a point where like the dude ducks a spear and it hits someone behind him, which is always cool. Pulls out a knife and throws the knife, and like, all right, this stuff is cool. But then I was like, the classic, right? So why can't I talk to these guys? Like these guys clearly have clothes on and like are part of some sort of community. Isn't there some way that like, why do I gotta play another game in which I am a vaguely Nordic dude killing a bunch of brown like orcs, basically? And then the trailer a minute in was like, and hey, a lot of these fights don't have to be fights at all. And they show the character picking up some sticks and just like putting them down as if to indicate like, hey, I am also a thinking being who can talk through some stuff. And then the trailer kind of went on to show some of what I'm guessing are a handful of, I don't know if it's fair to say that there's, I guess it's systems, but it's not like there's a dialogue system or something, right?
No, there's no
it's just your inventory.
Yeah, it's very much just kind of like a bartering system where by having this sort of interaction where you like offer something up to them, they will often give something in response and also then not attack you, right?
Right.
There are certain ways that you can kind of fuck that up though. For example, one time I didn't notice and I thought I had to continue in, like I was moving left to right in one area and I was like, oh, I met some people, I traded with them, and I was like, okay, I'm going to continue right. What I didn't realize was that just off screen to the right was their home, which is why they were standing there. And as soon as I got like past the door, I was like, oh, maybe I can still walk through. They seem chill. They were like, what are you doing? Right?
This is our home.
Yeah.
Like leave. Yeah.
And I was able to ultimately kind of just run from that situation given the positioning I was in. So it ended up being a thing that I avoided combat still, but yeah, there are still other like specific triggers that will start up a combat even if you've already like kind of talked through or motioned your way through.
right,
a piece of some sort. Yeah, no, that part was really surprising when I like, and the other thing that this game does that was surprising was just like it has no, apart from when you purposefully pull up a menu, like there's no other like UI. So things like you will start to get tired if you swing too much. You hear the character's voice, like the character's breaths get heavier, and then at a certain point when you're like out of stamina, you just like have to take a knee for a second. And like the first time it happened to me, I was like, wait, what the fuck? Because I was like mid swing, and then like I was getting ready to block, but the like all of a sudden I just dropped to one knee. I'm like, oh shit, and the guy like takes my fucking head off.
Damn.
Jeez. But then you like learn to like listen for the cues, and you can kind of see like you start swinging the sword a little heavier when you're getting low on stamina, and like it's all diegetic in a really interesting way, and really like what's the word I'm looking for, evocative way, like it feels, and it feels like heavy to, like all the swings are slow in a way that it feels heavy to like hit things. And
totally,
as you like walk through caves and like do like little like platforming sections and stuff, the like your character's breath like starts to echo in different, like the sound design is like phenomenal throughout. Yeah, I've just been really enjoying my time with it. I've only played a few hours, so I'm not super far in, but the combat itself also like I like never finished talking about it because it actually is like surprising. There's like a lot of options, and like there's a shoulder check where you can like knock people down or into one another. You have a like extra like little dagger that I don't think actually deals much damage as much as it's like a distraction. Like it'll stop someone that's mid swing, and like there'll be an opening. You know, you have a roll where you can roll past people normally, but sometimes if you don't measure the roll correctly, you end up rolling into people and dropping your sword. That's a big thing, is that you can drop your weapon and then just be like, well, I can't do shit. A really cool thing that they allow you to do then is also do a roll and like pick up your weapon as you're rolling, but you do have to hit the use button and like mid roll. So it's just, I like tweeted a couple of fights that I had where it's just like, it's like messy, and it feels not quite directed, but almost like when a fight is choreographed really realistically in a way that both parties end up fucked at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That sort of feeling of like that struggle took a lot of, like, obviously I like survived it this time. I died often. But the time that you do survive it, you still end up on the other side completely like expended, like and it's just, it's very cool. There's lots of neat secrets that feel like it goes back to this like diegetic, like the sense of everything being diegetic. It's just like there's like things where like you hit the use button over something that looks interesting and something will happen, and you'll be like, oh shit. Like any other game that was like just side like set dressing, right? Totally. But like this all, it's very fun. I definitely suggest checking it. It's on Game Pass too, which is for
I
PC.
I just noticed that because I went there. I was like, where did I see that I could get that?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't think I got a code. Where did I see that? And the answer was that I saw it on Game Pass, because I also saw a thing that I want to shout out really quick. Also,
yes,
so
that's
Unto
why.
the End.
That's why I went there, which is funny because then I saw Unto the End and I started playing that, and then I didn't have more time later, but.
To play Monster Sanctuary, which I'd forgotten I'd even played, which is not meant as an insult to Monster Sanctuary, which is a very cool game by the studio Moi Roy, I believe that's how that's pronounced. That is a Pokemon Metroidvania. That's the vibe. That's what it is. That's the truth of what it is. It's a side-scrolling Pokemon game, monster collection and battling game. In which you hatch animals, these monsters, from eggs, explore a world in kind of a 2D Metroidvania way. Use the skills that your various monsters give you. That includes things like, you know, having flying monsters that can pick you up and hover you over to a place, or having something that can cut through vines. You know, it's almost like your what were they? What are those called? Are those
HMs?
HMs.
Machines.
Otherwise,
Yeah, they're like
hidden
special
machines.
moves
Yes.
that get you around the world in Pokemon. There's one.
Yeah, and so like each of the monsters has at least one of those, basically,
right,
where you're burning stuff, and there's one I saw in the trailer that makes you invisible.
I was just gonna point that one out, which is neat. Like they just like run up to a group of enemies and then like go invisible, and I'm like, oh, goodbye.
Yep, it's sick. And you know the battling so far is very straightforward. I'm only 90 minutes in or something. But the monster designs are all pretty cute. There's a good mix of stuff in here. Each monster has a big skill tree, which is fun, because you're like, okay, I'm going to spec this as a healer. I'm going to spec this one as like a crit focused version of it, you know? And so you could end up with multiples of the same monster, and you could say, okay, well, this is going to be the one that's support and like buffs, and this is going to be the one that does like heavy physical damage, for instance. And so like, yeah, the crew that I'm rolling with right now, includes someone who, for the first 2 rounds, so basically everyone on each side, you have 3 of these monsters out at once, and each of them gets an action. So it's almost more like a JRPG, right? Each round. Right. And so I have one, for instance, that sets up a thing that does just like, hey, all physical attacks will do extra damage on our side. Hey, every hit will do, anytime that you do a hit, you'll also do a second like bonus sidekick hit that does like an extra 20 damage or something, right? And those, like having a character who's like, all right, this is just my buffer. Then over here is my character who is like, I'm just searching for crits, because when I crit, I get all sorts of interesting other effects. And so I'm going to go through all the skill trees and get anything that gives me crit up. And I'm going to equip crit up equipment. Like, it's just a JRPG, you know? Right, but it's really fun, and the monster designs are really cool. Again, it's called Monster Sanctuary. You know, the story is very light, you know? There is a world, and there are people who take care of the monsters who are like, you know, they all have a familiar that's been passed down, you know, from generation to generation. And now it's your turn to become the monster sanctuariist. I forget what they're called. They're called something. They're called rangers, but they have like, you know, that sort of name, you know. Right. You should play this game, Cado. Cado, you should play this game. I saw this trailer, I was like, this is a Cado game. Yeah. This 100% is a Cado game.
I'm definitely going to get
really cute
over the holidays for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Anything else? Anyone else playing anything they want to shout out?
I am looking at the Twitter tag Cyberbug 2077.
Oh, yeah, well, sure. Yes. You mentioned during our break, Gita, they put out an announcement today.
Yes.
They put out an apology.
Yeah, 8 hours ago, Cyberpunk, I'm reading Brian Ashcraft's article from Kotaku.com. I don't know, some website. Cyberpunk put out an announcement saying that they apologize for the state of the game on PS4, or what the last version of Xbox was called.
Yeah, Xbox One. Yeah.
Yeah, and they are offering refunds for players that are experiencing bugs on those platforms.
Just on those platforms, or are those refunds everywhere? Does it say?
I think it's for let's see. We would appreciate if you give us a chance, but if you're not pleased with the game on your console or don't want to wait for updates, you can opt to refund your copy. For copies purchased digitally, please use the refund system on PSN or Xbox, respectively. For box versions, please first try to get a refund at the store. Should this not be
Shout outs to
possible,
retail workers who are going to be like, no, why would you waste my time with this? It's the holidays. I'm super busy right now.
I can't imagine having to deal with this on top of the holiday rush, which will still be insane, even though we have a pandemic happening.
Yes. Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, perhaps for them to make it explicitly clear that you are totally welcome to refund their game. I think Mike Isaac from the New York Times said that on a recent investor call, CD Projekt Red said they've already recouped all of their development costs from the 8 years it took to make this game. So it doesn't really matter to them.
Nope. They've sold 8 million copies of this game before in pre-sale. In pre-orders alone, it was 8 million. That's so much money.
Yeah.
Also, anyone who bought this game and on last gen consoles on a PS4, I say last gen, it's still this generation. Those are the machines people own are PS4s and Xbox Ones. Maybe they own an Xbox One S or X. Maybe they own a PS4 Pro. Maybe a PS4
literally
Slim.
Cannot get a PlayStation 5 right now. You cannot get one.
You cannot. Right. The most people who play video games on console are doing it on those consoles. They did not show base PS4 or Xbox One footage. They did show it. They showed Pro. They showed Series or One X, but they did not show that footage. They had that footage. They could have filmed that footage. They didn't do that because it looked bad. They knew it looked bad.
Mike Isaac in that same thread said that, denying review codes for PS4 and Xbox One does feel like they're trying to defraud their customers. We can't say that is what they're trying to do. We don't know if it was an intentional move. Even though we can make educated guesses.
We can make some pretty educated guesses, yeah.
But it feels like defrauding. I've seen other journalists outside of video games say similar things, that specific act feels very suspicious and weird. It has to be said, this isn't just a case of a game has some bugs or it has one notorious game-breaking bug, which is already something that many people find unacceptable in a shipped game. This is a case where I know people who have encountered multiple game-breaking bugs on the same save file and have lost significant progress, just every time they play the game. Just having to restart while they're playing the game during their play sessions. Yeah. This is the only game I can think of that was this broken on launch was Fallout New Vegas, and that led to that company completely changing the way they develop games because they decided it was no longer acceptable to ship broken games.
I have a high tolerance for jank. As people who will anyone who remembers me defending Fallout 4 at its launch may remember. And yet at the same time, the thing that I don't have a high tolerance for is trying to cover up what that is or prevent people from knowing what the situation is at the point at which they can make a decision about spending their money or not. A lot of people have been looking forward to this thing who are not in our discourse circles, who do not know the problems with this game's representation of trans folks. So I put some time into this game. Let me just say really quick. I put some time into this game. Yeah. This game has some fucking problems that are not surprising if you've read the articles, like the ones we talked about when on launch day, looking at some of the stuff Polygons run around issues of transphobia, but also in terms of racist caricature. Like the Japanese characters in this game are just top to bottom some of the most stark caricatures of traditional East Asian stereotypes I've seen in so long. It's really just deeply, I'd say disappointing, but we knew this was coming, right? Mm-hmm. And so it already has those problems, but a lot of people didn't know that. A lot of people saw advertisements on their NBA game and were like, oh, sick, that looks sick, looking at a thing that they couldn't buy. Dude, they could buy it, but they couldn't play it on anything. And
my boyfriend's dad on our weekly Shabbos call mentioned Cyberpunk to us because he had seen advertisements for it.
Right. Yeah. Totally. And I am, despite my high tolerance, I don't have a high tolerance for when other people are basically being, buying something that doesn't exist the way they've been led to believe it does. Yeah. It's deeply deceptive. It's deeply manipulative. We can jump up and down about covering our ass around whether or not it was intentional, but what was intentional was not showing those versions of the games and showing clips that did not represent the state of play. I have had very few bugs. I have not lost any progress. I put a bunch of hours into this game at this point. And
you didn't have that early one with Jackie disappearing?
Did not have that. What's that? I believe you. That sounds
here's
terrible.
The thing. I thought this was. I've seen this 3 different times. I watched 2 different streams where this happened, and then it happened in my own playthrough. I'm playing on Stadia. I got a code for Stadia, where in the first, the very first mission that you do, where you go see the Ripper Doc, and Jackie's waiting for you, upstairs.
Oh, Victor Vector. The secret best character in this game.
Yeah, yes.
Victor Vector is such a fucking good name.
Yeah, Victor Vector. His name is Victor Vector. Yeah. He's an old prize fighter. I mean, this is the fucking thing with this game. Is I think this game is repugnant whenever it is not whenever, because also I've had trans folks write me to say, Austin, you need to play this game because actually there's this character who's trans and she's great and I love her and da 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 da. And I've had people, you know what I mean? So this is like the actual duality of this game is that I had one of the most like heart-wrenching moments I've played in video games in 2020 last night, and that was sandwiched between two deeply repulsive caricatures in some side content, right? Like this is this fucking game. Anyway, continue. Jackie disappears.
Yeah, no, just Jackie. After you see the Ripper Doc, you're supposed to go up and talk to Jackie and be like, "All right, we're headed to the next point of this, like the very first quest," and he's just not there. Right. He's totally gone. I went and did like a side quest and came back and thinking maybe he'll reappear. Nope. Ended up having to
at that point you're in the worst position because then you're like, well, I've done something. Yeah. If I load an older save, I lose the progress of that side quest I did.
I hedged my bets. I did a save right there when I saw, okay, well shit. Afterwards I did, and then I had a save from before because I was like, I wanted to see if I can do the side quest and I couldn't go do it. So I got lucky. But it ended up fixing itself just on a reset, even with the newer save. So that was all right.
Gotcha.
But like, it was like, and I was like, okay, well, I guess that happens to every single person because I had seen two other streams where that exact same bug had happened. And I was like, okay, well,
the bugs I've hit
it's not game breaking, but like it's still like feels like one more step away it could have been.
Well,
right?
and everyone's hitting different things. Like I hit the one where there's the one where you go into I think it's a pachinko parlor or an arcade to kill someone because that's what you do in this fucking game.
Right.
And it's Fallout, by the way. That's the game that's for people who like, there was lots of talk around like, what is this game going to be like? Oh, it's going to next level of open world. Like, no, it's a Fallout game that's denser because it's in a city instead of being in a wasteland, right? Like there's just more NPCs, but then you go do Fallout shit. Do you want to like, break into a door because your skill level is high enough and you go in and then you like vacuum up a bunch of shit that's on the ground? I have a skill at this point that like lets me convert any junk immediately into crafting materials. Yeah, it's a Fallout game. I have that. That's what I'm doing in this game.
And instead of culture stopping in the 1950s or whatever, it stopped in the 1980s and is edgy.
Yes, in the 1980s. Exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, that literally is funny. It, right? Because the Soviet Union still exists, right? Like that is still 100%.
Yeah.
Which also makes it more palatable when you realize how off, like, and how like not actually forward thinking it is. Which I haven't talked about this on this. I have talked about this on this podcast briefly, but one of the most frustrating things has always been to me that Cyberpunk version 3, which ends up leaning in this solar punk direction and like anticipates the change in the sci-fi genre, that shit just gets dumped in favor of 80s throwback nostalgia shit being all over this, which is doubly frustrating because the framing device that this game ends up going into, where you do see some of 2020 in this game, could have been your 80s place, and then 2070 could have been your place where you're doing new, actual, interesting ideas, and where you have a different perspective on transhumanism. Not to say, and obviously on top of that, also maybe you don't do transphobic shit, and instead they just kind of did both.
Reflect the way that people talk about and think about gender now, as opposed to how they talk about and thought about gender in the 1980s.
2070 people are going to look at us and think that we were fucking bigots. Are you kidding me? Like, even people now who are gender queer, like, are going in the future, people are going to look at us and be like, damn, closed-minded as shit,
I mean, we have to, the thing also is like, David and I just kept talking about how like this is a game where there's a lot of immigrant groups in it, but we can't figure out why there are no like Eastern European immigrant groups, given where the studio is located and how much pride they have in their heritage. And then you just like, we watched like a video on ID about LGBTQ activists in Poland, in Warsaw specifically, and the struggles that they've been going through under the Law and Order Party. Those people already live in a cyberpunk dystopia. There are like scenes in the club in that video that look like scenes from Cyberpunk, but they can't actually do any commentary on it because they're stuck in what the political problems in the 1980s were. And during that time, Poland was part of the Soviet bloc. So the issues of Poland are very, very different. And that's why there's no Polish people in this game.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
I've spoken to people who have done development work there. I've spoken to Americans who've done development work in Poland, and who have tried to raise certain issues with their employers about not just in Poland, but in kind of Eastern Europe in general. And the thing that I've heard from a couple of different people is basically like, it's just very hard to to communicate to them what the different situation is here regarding XYZ, because they have different understandings around race, around gender, etc. And that is, I get that 100%, and I'm thankful for the people who are there, who are either from those places or from somewhere else, who are trying to push the conversation forward, who are trying to change the discourse. But like at the end of the day, if the product ends up being something that is like so deeply off-putting to people, then it's hard for me to say that like, oh, we should go to bat because people are trying. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm never going to. This is a game that, like, to put cards on the table, I think a little bit, this is a game that, as someone who's been a fan of not just the genre Cyberpunk, but specifically this IP as written by the team that predates CDPR, who like knows who Johnny Silverhand is, who's the person who like sees a thing that says, you know, Morgan Blackhand, and I'm like, oh shit, that's Mike Pondsmith's OC. Like, that's who that character is. I know that person. I want to read this thing in the game. Like, I can play this game privately and enjoy it, and you know, again, like I said before, really, really sink into the moments where it is being really empathetic and human, because those moments are in this game a lot. And sometimes they show up in the side stuff. They do show up in the side stuff, but it is always sandwiched next to something that is like deeply repulsive, whether that is in-game advertising, whether that is jokes about the way that characters talk, or
love
move.
those.
This game feels...
Is this like everyone I went to middle school with went game together and made a video game?
This game
like,
feels
like they're
it's
I'm gonna whip up my
performing-
lunch and they say it looks like diarrhea. Like, fuck this. Like,
This game feels like it's performing horny, but has never been horny in its life.
Oh, it's never been horny in its
Never
life.
in
It
its
doesn't know what
fucking
horny
life.
is.
No.
And it's fine to not know what horny is, but it really wants you
the
to think
store that
it's
says
horny.
Yeah.
PP on the sign is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire
which one?
life. There's
Which
a prominent screenshot. I'm sure like Chris Person retweeted it. That is just like an adult store, but the sign just says PP.
Oh yeah, PP. Yeah, classic. Yeah,
gotta go to the
landmark,
PP
a Night
store.
City landmark. PP.
Well, like, it's just like, why not just put the Tim Heidecker song about drinking hot piss in the game directly? In this game, you know?
No, this game would be so much better if it did have a little bit of Tim Heidecker in it, right? Like,
yeah,
it takes
if
itself
this
very
game
seriously
was like
very often.
Decker, then it would be a much easier game to take, because Decker's jank is part of the thing that they're saying, right? Like,
right.
Decker, Tim Heidecker has this whole universe now where he plays a character that is himself, but like the worst version of himself, including being a right winger. And in that universe, which includes On Cinema and Decker, Decker is like a self-insert fan fiction TV show he's made with his friends that's produced very shoddily and exclusively from his perspective as a self-obsessed narcissistic right winger, right? Yeah. So when you go Decker Port of Call New Orleans and everybody who's Creole speaks with a really fucked up accent, it's funny because we know that it comes from the perspective of Tim Heidecker, the character. Mm-hmm. Here, it's like, whose perspective does it come from when people call the bigger black gang boss a fat fuck behind his back?
Right.
Whose perspective does that come from? Yeah.
and also Dexter Deshawn. One of the big frustrations for me playing this game was like, why can't I look like Dexter Deshawn? Dexter Deshawn looks sick to me.
He looks so dope.
Like, he looks so dope, and the character creator does not let you play in that space, right? Like, you can have dark skin, but like the black hair options, let me tell you, not there. Blackness has not really existed in the city beyond Dexter Deshawn. There is a Mexican gang, I believe they're Mexican, called the Valentinos, and I just finished a mission with them that touches some like Mexican culture stuff that I have the intense suspicion was not necessarily there's like a funeral, there's like the character calls it an ofrenda, which is like it's like an altar that you put stuff on to signify something that like, oh, this meant something to them. But from what I understand, that's a Dia de Muertos thing, not a Muertos thing, not a just general funeral thing, not like a every time someone dies we do this. And so that was like, okay, like you're building a game via Wikipedia here, if that's how you end up. Or maybe not even. Maybe, because maybe, I bet if you do the Wikipedia search for Ofrenda, you will end up, and I'm probably also butchering that, I apologize. But
I mean, it's just like a
close enough.
yeah, ofrenda.
Okay.
Yeah,
Ofrenda. Yeah. I will one day. I've been practicing rolling my R's during.
Yeah.
Can you also not
quarantine.
roll your R's? Because I can't roll
yeah.
my R's at all.
No, this has been like a quarantine thing that I've been practicing privately, and I'm
that's so
embarrassed to do
No.
publicly still. And the embarrassment makes it harder to do it publicly. Like I can walk around my neighborhood and do it, but I can't do it on a microphone yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way any accent. Like you have the embedded way that you spoke in your whole life, so it's hard to
Exactly.
learn either direction, from English to anything else, obviously.
Yeah. Anyway, it's the whole thing that I'm saying here is like there was stuff about this game that I'm really enjoying that you know who I am. You know what I do is I get in front of a microphone and I try to sell you on a game. But there's so much here that has taken me out or that has made me go like, ugh, if I told someone to go play this game and then they meet this character,
Yeah.
they
It's
will
like
think that
recommending
and I
an
fucked up like this
anime
before. Like I
with, like-
think a lot about the time that I sent people to go play Breath of the Wild without giving a hard enough warning about the transphobia in that game. Like that sits with me in a real way.
Yeah.
Because to me, as someone on the out, and you know, there was other stuff in that game that was like, you know, I think the Gerudo generally are also playing into stereotypes around race, and like that has
It
always been
feels
the case in
like
in
an
Zelda
Arabian
games.
pastiche in a way that becomes more and more uncomfortable the longer it goes on uncommented
Totally.
on. Yeah.
Totally, but the fact that I can sit in that space and be okay with stuff that offends me or that I think is insensitive or that is cruel, and in the case of certain advertisements, especially in Cyberpunk, cruel. The fact that I can like be in that space without it ruining my day does not mean that I should just assume that is the case for other people who are playing the game. And that limits me in a real way because like I don't think it's necessarily enough for me to be like, but I'm having a good time, so fuck it. You know, it's a lot like in some ways it's not that different from, and if people are listening and are like trying to like wrap their head around why that's the case, think of it in the way that in the same way that I'm having a good time playing this game in terms of bugginess, where the two bugs I've hit so far are an occasional T-pose in a cutscene, not that often, like not as often as Rob had it, for instance. I didn't get any of the Rob stuff of people standing up and kneeling and standing up and sitting down randomly, which sounded very funny. I didn't get that at all. Got some T-posing. And then I had one quest where someone fell through the earth, where I was supposed to kill them, and I shot her with a shotgun, one of the tech shotguns that can shoot through stuff, fell down, and then she kept falling. She just fell below. And it's a very funny clip, and it's like, and you know, there's a world in which I would have shared that clip traditionally, but like right now, like I don't feel like I need to add to the footprint of a thing that sold 8 billion copies, you know, or 8 million copies. I said billion, I meant million. Everyone on this planet had bought Cyberpunk at least once. 8 billion copies sold. So you know, if you can understand why in that situation, I wouldn't say, well, I'm not getting any bugs. I'm not getting any game breaking bugs. So that's not really a problem. That's, you know, obviously the person who says that is being deeply selfish and short-sighted and tunnel visioned on their own experience. And hey, this game is clearly very buggy and lots of people are having trouble with it. And you don't want to be the person who is dismissing people's play experiences. That's also the case with the transphobia, with the racism, with everything else in the game that doesn't work. It might not hit you that way. You might be wondering why Rob and I aren't trading stories about how we got in and out of this fight or whatever, because that's what we do with immersive sims. You might be, you know, wondering why Gita and I aren't talking about which character we want to romance the most, because that's what we do with most games that have sick romance options. Because that's something in this game.
Anytime, you know, I've seen people talking about the bugs and exclusively just the bugs and being like, well, is it really that much worse than any other game that comes out that is this big and this anticipated? And I understand wanting to be able to mentally separate what is just gamer outrage that we've seen, that's overblown backlash from legitimate critique. And for all the issues here, the racism, the transphobia, the just like weird like lack of storytelling and like weird bad writing, and the bugs, like all those issues, if you see like a lot of people complaining and you look at the substance of their critiques and they're all very similar and you can't already decide if it's that bad, I feel like you just need to sit back and just accept that many, many people have this issue and it might not apply to you, but that doesn't mean that the issue is not valid. You know, I try to look at this in terms of when I when I report on The Sims, there's a lot of the times when The Sims fandoms has issues with things and I don't actually think that they're valid. But when you look at their critiques, you understand that this level of anger comes from a genuine place that does have a kernel of truth to it. So when like Sims fans say that the developers are lazy because they haven't added wheelchairs to the game yet, the developers are not lazy. They're not lazy at all. They're working very, 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 very hard. And there's a lot of issues with adding wheelchairs to The Sims. Like you have to create animations and own like a new pathing, and the pathing in The Sims is already kind of shitty. So like that is a lot of work. But it is an issue that they don't have any representation and visibility in the game.
But that is like exactly like that hits a true thing, which is about what has been prioritized, what has not been. And in the case of Cyberpunk, it's almost the opposite of what has been prioritized, and it's like what has been allowed to slip through. Right? I saw a thing going around that seemed like it was a play on a classic right-wing meme about how, oh yeah, black people only make up X% of the population, but do X plus 30% of the crime in America, blah blah blah. And there's like a meme gesturing at that by way of talking about cars instead of people. And it's like, okay, well, like how did this get in? Who saw this? Well, how did they understand this? Why weren't they more inquisitive about it? What's that represent in terms of what was or wasn't put in place? The epilepsy thing is a similar situation, right? Which is like someone seemingly drew on real. So for people who don't know, anyone who missed this, there are devices in this game in which you do a thing called a brain dance, which is sort of a VR reliving someone's experience. If you've seen Strange Days, it's very much like Strange Days, except a little bit more interactive in terms of the way that you interact with the recording. And when you put the device on, it blasts your eyes with this bright light. And the initial version of it, the version of it that was in the game at launch, you didn't talk about this last week, right? Did you? Was this after this? I don't want to replicate telling of the story from Thursday's show or Friday's show if you already hit this. But maybe you didn't. So Leanna Rupert over at Game Informer mentioned this or wrote about this. You put this device on, it blasts your eyes with rapid light. And one of the things that she said basically was like, hey, when this thing works specifically, when this thing triggers, it looks almost exactly like a diagnostic device that real doctors use, real neurologists use to trigger seizures among people who have epilepsy and who have seizures. Yeah,
it's a diagnostic tool to see whether or not you do get seizures.
Exactly. This shit gets me really heated for like deeply personal reasons. My mom had brain surgery when I was a kid, and because of the condition that brought her to that, she's not epileptic, but she does have seizures, and it has very similar triggers. And the idea of me like playing this game in front of her, imagine a world in which I was still in academia instead of being in games journalism. I didn't pay as close attention to discourse. I was like, oh man, they made a Cyberpunk game. Mom, you should watch me play the Cyberpunk game. And like being in that room and having that happen is like totally a thing that could have happened if I was home for the holidays and they hadn't fixed this. Yeah. Anyway.
I mean, we've been to like video game conventions where one of our mutual friends has been unable to enter rooms.
Yes.
Because of
100%.
flashing lights.
Because of flashing lights and shit like this. Because people do not think about this.
Yeah.
And so this is a situation where like, do I think that device was in the game? They've since patched it down to where it doesn't seem like it triggers that stuff anymore. It's like, been slowed down. It's not as bright, etc. And in the original thing, in the original report that Liana did, she writes, if not modeled off the IRL design, it's very spot on coincidence. And because this is one aspect that I would personally advise you avoid altogether. When you notice the headset come into play, look away completely or close your eyes. This is a thing that's like, this doesn't need to have been malicious or an intentional attempt to hurt people for it to be like negligent in a way that is that borders on cruelty, right? You have to think about what, for me, especially with companies, I'm not talking about like your friend makes a mistake and we can talk about good intentions or bad intentions. When a company that's going to sell 8 million copies of a thing fails to think, if people with epilepsy play this game, will they be triggered into having seizures? We were talking about a sort of negligence that goes beyond your friend, forgot to bring the beer over and now your party sucks or whatever. We're even beyond someone offends you in a personal manner. We're at the point at which both there was a failure at that company level and there was a failure at the Sony and Microsoft level for not catching this during certification processes. And at that point, I think that we are allowed to talk about the outcomes, or allowed to talk about the and I think this is also true then for the rest of that content. It does not need to be that someone is sitting in a room, like thinking of the best ways to offend trans people. What matters is the protections were not in place. People were not hired to speak to the trans experience. People were not hired to speak to what it means to be a Japanese person or a Japanese American, to read this stuff and go like, hey, wait a second, doesn't this play into some shit that's like literally 40-year-old racist, nationalist anxieties around race and culture. And without those procedures in place, you're going to have a worse game, and you're going to end up, hurting people physically or emotionally or both.
I feel like what gets lost when we talk, like I see a lot. There's a brand of video game critique. I think most commonly typified by Jim Sterling, that is like a consumer rights approach. And I think what that misses in terms of critiquing the practices of companies like this is that they don't actually care about you, the consumer, you in the personal. They care about the investors of the company. And they decided that the investors of the company, their needs in terms of having the biggest big video game of the year are more important than the needs of not just the individual consumer, but like people at large, like people in general. They've made it very clear, this is how capital actually works. This is how capitalism actually is structured, so that the people at the very, very top make all the choices and everybody else doesn't really get a say. So even if you it's very tempting to see this as a consumer rights issue, but this is an issue of just like the inhumanity of capitalism. That isn't, I know I've now made this incredibly broad, but CD Projekt Red is a corporation. It is a large multinational corporation. Yeah. And that means that they are susceptible to these same foibles, just like any other company is. And it doesn't matter how much they say they love their fans. They are ultimately beholden to the investors over you.
Yeah. And those investors do not care if they get their depiction of trans folks right.
No,
because
they don't care if people get seizures, clearly.
They don't care if, right, exactly. What they would care about is a huge lawsuit. What they would care about is if there really was a big, huge push to deplatform the game somewhere because of that or something.
Yeah,
but
as we can see, Twitch
because likewise,
is not
the big platforms want that check.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Twitch is not. Me and Matt Galt did a blog about this last week. But Twitch is not penalizing streamers who show the multitudes of incidences of nudity in the game, even though games that are not all that different from Cyberpunk are still banned from the platform outright.
I think those other games are different. Whether you're talking about Robert Yang's games, which have dick in them, which have dick in them for an important reason, which is like to communicate something about masculinity and sexuality and penises and etc. Or frankly, I think the games that have dick in them to be like horny are better about having dick in them because they're actually horny and are actually doing something there. Yeah. I'm
Dramatical Murder is a banned game, a banned Cyberpunk game about sex, death, and violence.
Right. There are other things out there that are in this space that are actually doing something there. I'm 15 hours into this game. I've not seen my character's junk show up once. I've seen sex scenes in this game. Junk does not show up. I don't. That option is like stapled onto the top of this game in a way that I don't know what they thought the positive outcome was outside of pandering to a question that they misunderstood. Yeah. Right. Because this is also a game in which gender is locked to pronoun choice is locked to your character's voice. This is a game that does not have, which I understand from talking to people. I have friends in game development, and I understand how you can make a decision early on in game development that limits you late in game development, where you go like, oh yeah, we'll just have all of the masculine voice options pull from this huge catalog of responses. And so in some of those responses, it says, leave him alone or something because you've chosen the masculine voice, quote unquote, at the top of the game. And I get that that's something that's like hard to swoop in and fix later. But again, what that represents is the right people weren't in place at the top of the game. game development to ensure that you don't fall into that trap, and that it wasn't prioritized or given the resources necessary in order to fix it in the long term, because it would be very expensive by the time that they decided, if they decided at all, that it was worth actually addressing. But again, no genderqueer options, though in the past they had talked about potentially including non-binary options at least, if not something even more broad than that. And so like all that stuff to me, we're like talking around kind of core points here, is like, I don't know how much more I'm going to end up talking about Cyberpunk. My guess is I'm going to keep playing it. I'm not getting that many bugs. I think it runs pretty well on my system, all said, especially after I found some stuff that was like, oh yeah, it's not pulling enough RAM out of your actual RAM. Make this switch and make it run better, which I did, and it does. I'll link you to it, Cado. So you're playing on Stadia, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. But like, I don't know. It is very hard for me to be like, I need to use this platform that we have to keep talking about Cyberpunk, because it doesn't need our platform, right?
Yeah.
And
it's the weird Joe Rogan of video games.
Seriously, right? Like the last thing I need, which is the like, I don't tweet about Joe Rogan when Joe Rogan says some dumb shit either.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't need to add my commentary to that mess.
No, my voice does not matter there. I guess it's like, while I'm talking about it for the first time, having played it now, and this is probably the one time this year that I talk about this game, it's like, I so badly wish we got more of the stuff that's good in that game. I wish the people who'd made the stuff in that game that feels deeply human and considered, the stuff that thinks about genre, at least the stuff that has the occasional really sharp idea around something, or the people there who, there are times when you can feel the writer's room. And someone says, no, we cannot just have cyber psychos in this game. I know that they were a thing in the original game. Cyber psychos are the thing where if someone has too much cyberware, they lose control of their body, become hyper aggressive, and start hurting people. Which is to say, someone who has lots of cybernetics, someone who has lots of prostheses, loses their mind. And you can see that someone goes like, no, we're not going to have a game where you go around and kill people because they were so disabled and had so many implants put in that they're now crazy. But what we get is this middle ground where instead what we get is a series of boss fights where you're supposed to take them down non-lethally because a character believes that that cyberpsychosis, quote unquote, is actually a kind of cultural myth, and that what we're having is a crisis of mental illness where treatment is available and where resources aren't being given to poor people, basically. And some of those quests do hit on that stuff very directly, where you talk to people who like served in war and then they came back and were given cheap implants, and those cheap implants didn't match with their genetics or blood type right, and there were and you can feel someone trying to pull that idea of the cyber psycho back over the finish line into a space where it's trying to say something about the world and about politics and about who gets kind of stepped on here. But at the end of the day, most of these are still big fights in arenas against cyber psychos who have sick cyber arms, let them do electricity punches or do like quick dodge moves or whatever. And it's like, I wish the person who started pulling that over the edge back towards, here's how we do this idea in an updated way, I wish those people were allowed to even pull further, or were in a position where they could have shaped more of this game. Because when it does the stuff that is deeply human, when it's quiet, this is stuff that Rob talked about, when it's that stuff, instead of aggressively transphobic, instead of aggressively racist, instead of aggressively like Gita, like you said, like middle schoolish, where like 7 dildos in a room, let me tell you, 1 dildo in a room, okay, there's a dildo. 2 dildos in a room. Is this a joke? What's going on? 7 dildos in a room? You've lost me.
7 dildos in a room. You just learned the word dildo and you think it's so funny.
You learned the word dildo. Yeah, exactly. You think it's hilarious.
It's past. It's past even 7 in a single room, because it's 7 in every single room, right?
Exactly.
On the fucking sidewalk. Like,
they're on the sidewalk. They're everywhere. I need the dildo patch. Get the dildos out of here.
It's just like it's like someone thought that joke was funny once and then wanted to tell it again every single minute. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, I wish that other game was the one that we got. I will personally probably continue to put hours into this because I have not played a Fallout game in quite some time, and because I am pretty hyper aware of what's fucked up here. I'm curious about how some of this stuff shakes out and how it's handled, but I don't know that I'm going to report in with my weekly Cyberpunk update at this point, because I don't think I have anything to add.
Please don't. Honestly, I really just feel like this does occupy the same mental space as someone like Joe Rogan for me. Like, every time someone talks shit about who's guested on Joe Rogan, I'm just like, it's impossible to avoid that man. Like, he's the most popular podcast in the United States. You can't deplatform Joe Rogan, but we can just at least not talk about him. And
we don't need we don't need to talk about the porn we're watching on this show. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
exactly,
there are things that are like you know, this is not not every entertainment that you watch has to be turned into content to get more eyes on it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting to talk about the foibles of the company CD Projekt Red. But that's different than talking about than coming in every week with our Cyberpunk 2077 report, you know?
Also, I want to quote Carolyn Pettit really quick, who had a good tweet yesterday, because we're already in the part of the discourse around this game. Also, I came into this episode being like, we're not going to talk about Cyberpunk.
You 100% did. I brought up the bugs during break, and you were like, yeah, let's just talk about the bugs. Like, let's become a totally different thing.
Let's talk about the bugs, and then we'll move on really quick.
Yeah.
No, turns out, no, fuck.
Yep.
Cannot escape Earth's gravity. Carolyn noted, I was going to say, is the discourse right now, we're in that moment where it might swing back the other way, where it's like, so the hype is so big, the hype gets deflated. Then you get this second read of like, wait a second, maybe this is a diamond in the rough. If you can look past the gross shit, you find da-da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
And one of the things in the conversation over the weekend was, hey, this isn't a good fucking Cyberpunk game. Your character is constantly working with the police and says shit like not all cops are bad. Not all cops are bastards is like a literal thing said in the game. And so people, so the first layer of response was, that's not very Cyberpunk. The second layer of response was, well, actually, V is a bad person. You need to understand
it's not even just V. Literally
no,
in the first like fucking when you're sitting in the car with Jackie's driving you home. This is like the very first quest. Sorry for the spoiler on this quest, but you watch Max Tax jump out of their fucking thing and murk like 5 fucking random people. And Jackie says, "Damn, too bad for them. They probably deserved it though."
They probably deserved it though. Yeah.
What the fuck?
As we know, Judge Dredd
like you're literally he's literally in the same sentence talking
system.
about how the Max Tax is like shitty and like a horrible like he makes
Max Tax, by the way, literally are the people who are pushed to being they are the people who are like they're psychopaths.
Yeah.
They're psychopaths. If you've seen the anime Psychopaths, they are people who are like super chromed out and kept on the edge of going into quote unquote cyber psychosis so that they can be deployed by the state as a you know, a super powerful weapon that is still at the same time basically leashed to the state so that they can be deployed as a super powerful weapon.
And it's like in that same, like the sentence before, he's like decrying how fucked up that whole like troop is and how like they should like kill everyone, and then says, but the people who they just killed probably deserved it. Like,
they probably deserved it.
There's such a weird writing going on here, though. It's not even like different areas of the game. It's like sometimes individual characters contradict themselves within like seconds of like making their point, you know?
Yes. So the Carolyn tweet that I wanted to read in relation to this was, I've seen multiple people now say that Cyberpunk 2077 works as a critique of cops, etc., because we all understand that V is a bad person. And I get wanting to see our values reflected in the stuff that we like, but come on, just accept that the game isn't leftist. It's okay. You can still like it. And I think that is like, please, I'm begging you, if you're listening to this podcast, before you go into like the like galaxy brain take that actually this game, despite all of its flaws, like let's just bracket those. Let's just move those to the side and talk about what's really the heart of the game actually is still, you know, anti-corporate, blah, blah, blah. Like, you cannot bracket and put to the side the fact that the game is actually punching down, that the game is burning the margins, because there's an occasional glimpse of something different. You have to take those two things in accord with each other. And then frankly, like for me, when I look at a cultural object like this, the thing that I end up wanting to focus on is what produces those inconsistencies, what produces the game that at one point, you know, in one moment is able to occasionally give a kind of deeply critical read on the pharmaceutical industry or on the healthcare industry or on the military industrial complex or, you know, whatever, wherever it wants to take a target, and then seconds later wants to celebrate the power and authority of the police. You have to look at what the conditions of production were, and that ends up being the kind of big takeaway. And the conditions of production are a process that put a lot of people through a deeply alienating work experience in which they are separated from the product of their labor by needing to work ridiculous hours for a ridiculous amount of time, and in which no safeguards were put in to ensure that the kind of game that they were making had a coherent philosophy, a coherent worldview that understood the world that it was in and reflected the kind of the worldview, either worldview that it was trying to espouse. And instead, it was just a fucking disaster and a mess. And that's what you get from these conditions of production. And that it also reflects what you said at the top, Gita, which is like Poland currently is going through a kind of far right takeover in which queer folks are being targeted and are fighting for their lives and for their rights.
Yeah, I mean, right now in Poland, abortion has been functionally banned. It's still legal, but it's very, 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 very difficult to get an abortion. So, like, this is the political climate under which the game was made.
Yes, and that does not mean that people on that team are not out there in some instances marching, hand in hand for abortion rights, for queer rights. Like I absolutely believe those people exist on that team.
100%.
But that does not mean that the product that they're part of ends up coming out the other end, because the production method is meant to stomp those sorts of voices down, or at least at the very least kind of coagulate everything there into a sort of mush. And something that is more outspoken and is more leftist or more coherent generally, maybe not even to the left, but just more coherent generally, is not something that gets produced under those conditions. Instead, you get this kind of muck, and I think that's where we're kind of left with this thing. So
yeah, I am not gonna say there should not be any conservative art. Like, we both like the movie No Country for Old Men, which is an incredibly conservative message at the end of the day. And Cormac McCarthy's work is all extremely conservative. And it's all really good. I think he's one of the best writers of all time. It's just that I need it to be, one, like, that good, and two, not the conditions under which those pieces of art were made were ones where the work of the people who were making them was fundamentally respected. And I do not really see that from the end result here.
No, like I can't think of a thing more of a snapshot of the industry than a game that was made under tremendously exploitative conditions, where for most of the production time, this came out over the weekend too, most of the production time, the team believed that their bonuses would be tied to Metacritic score.
Ridiculous.
That was changed over the weekend. But also from the article that I read, I think there was a Jason Schreier article. The way the bonus system works is that once a month, I believe, you would get a special token that indicated once a week.
Token system.
You get a token, a bird token, because the CD Projekt Red has a bird as its icon. You get a token that indicated that you did a good enough job to be marked for a bonus at the end of all of this.
Yeah,
you collect those tokens, and those tokens cash out. It's cool to bring company script back. Actually, I love that. I love that's how that works. Anyway, under those conditions, into this marketplace, into an industry that awards with a critics award, Last of Us 2 Best Direction. Is there any surprise that this is what we got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can make great pieces of art that are just fundamentally have some weird conservative hatred in the middle of it. It's just like it has to be a coherent project, and it has to be made under conditions that does not just demean the people who are working on it. All that stuff's going to bleed into the work.
It is all going to bleed right in. All right, I think we got an episode here.
Yeah,
I think we did one.
This was the podcast.
I don't know.
Did a podcast.
We did the podcast. I hope everyone has a good week. We'll be back later this week. Actually, wait, are we not going to be back later this week? We're taking Friday off, except we're not. We're just finishing our...
Yeah.
We set out to do all of our Game of the Year recording on Friday, and then we didn't do that.
No.
We got most of the way there, but not all the way there. And so we need to use our Thursday recording time this week to put a wrap on the rest of our stuff and finish that up. So we will not be back later this week. I hope everyone has a good week. We'll be back. Will we be back next Monday, Cado? Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe that was
regular
when
podcast on Monday.
No. No, next Monday is.
Oh, is our stuff starting next week? It's not. Oh, okay.
Yeah, next week is the
great.
21st. That
right.
The 21st through January 1st will be all our holiday coverage. Game of the year, Never Have I Ever game, all sorts of fun stuff. It's great so
We
far.
did some
and
really
we're gonna
good
finish it
pods,
up.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we did
Yeah,
good
some of those
ones.
pods are really good. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions or who submitted Never Have I Evers and then Holiday Hot Takes questions. They were all really good. We didn't get through everything, but we got through a lot of them. I'm very happy with the Never Have I Ever episode.
I think it was
incredible
great.
stories.
It was
So good.
I love hearing stories about how people play games, and this was like there's some really interesting ones.
Yeah, I can't wait for people to hear that one. So yeah, we still have a couple more episodes to go and to record. So we'll be doing that later this week. And I hope everyone has, I guess in that case, this is the last live episode dropping before the holidays,
Right.
before the
Yeah.
pre-recorded ones come. So thank you all for sticking with us this year. This has been a nightmare year. And I'm sure I'll say something similar to this in our final Game of the Year episode, but let me say it now too, just in case. This has been a nightmare year for everybody, and for some more than most, and our hearts go out to people who have been directly affected by COVID, who have had to work because they've been deemed essential, and because our government has not supplied any sort of legitimate or reasonable amount of support for folks. You've made this year a lot easier for us, and have helped me keep going. It's been tough, and I hope everyone has a good holiday. Happy Hanukkah to everyone who's celebrating currently, and happy holidays to everyone else who will be celebrating in the near future. Stay safe, everyone. You can find me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Where can you find you, Gita?
At XOXO Gossip Gita.
Cado.
At A_Cado_appears.
And as always, you can find us twitter.com/waypoint, waypoint.vice.com. Shout outs to Bowen for letting us use a track, Miss You, off the EP Pale Machine. Find out more about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. Look forward to our holiday stuff coming just a week from today. So look forward to that. And until then, fuck capitalism. For real though, go home. Except don't travel right now if you can help it.
Right.
And if you do so safely, please don't get pressured into like getting on a bus or a plane right now. I know it'll be a big fight, but please be safe if you can. For those of you who are being pressured to go home for the holidays or whatever, and for those of you who are spending the holidays alone and wish you were not, whether that is because of COVID or for other reasons, our hearts are with you, and I know how hard that is. Yeah. So, love and care to everyone listening. All right. On that note, peace. I really want to play it to the end. I did not make time for it this weekend. I'm mad at myself.
Hold on. Sorry. I could barely hear that sentence. You're like really robot-y, Austin.
Oh.
Yeah, you're very bleepy and bloopy in the last couple minutes. I thought it was me.
No, it's my connection, so I can't upload this thing right now.
Okay.
I can still basically understand you.
Yeah, it seems to have evened out at least. Just that last sentence right there.
Yeah, I think we're good now. We'll see. This upload is finally moving, so.
Great.
No, it's still going all over the place. I love this. I love this for me.
You are not roboting
baby?
anymore. But
are you sure? Are you sure I'm not roboting anymore? Because it says I have a level 1 voice connection.
Okay.
See?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
When you're perfectly still, everything is great.
Oh, you want me to turn off my camera?
There we go. I think that will work for the rest
helps.
of the pod. Hopefully that will help.
Hopefully that will help.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you say when I said that I was playing Until Dawn? We go from there because I didn't hear that.
I said, I really wanted to play that this weekend. Oh, also my picture of Juanito just sent. Cado, I have new equipment.
What? I was
whole
gonna
new setup.
say Your mic
It should be
sounded
fine,
different.
but I might be a little soft in terms of.
You sound all right now.
Okay. My hope is that it's easier than ever to pull out any noise, any background noise.
It sounds cleaner. It almost sounded when I had my volume down, and it sounded like when your old mic was peaking, but it's actually because it just sounds fuller, you know?
Yeah, totally. It's a 4K. Wow. I have it on 4K mode.
Whoa, shit.
Excuse me, what?
It's realer than
the mic is not. The mixer is. Yeah, exactly.
If you want to feel like Austin's just whispering socially into your ear, that's what buddy.
Yeah, exactly. The 4K button allows you to add extra analog magic, quote unquote, to your input when you need it. It injects a combination of high frequency EQ boost together with some finely tuned harmonic distortion to help enhance sounds.
Huh. That sounds fake.
It's bullshit.
It sounds fake. Because you called it magic, number one.
Yeah, they put it in quotes too. They put it like magic. Like, yeah, okay.
Don't call attention to it, to your bad copy. Come on.
The thing is, it's supposed to be a callback to when this company made a 4000 series console, which was often referred to as the SSL 4K. This is like back in, like years and years ago, you know?
So like there's a great...
Sorry, go ahead.
There's a great sign we pass all the time near me that is the now closed office of the Church Ushers Association of Brooklyn. And it's in the chat, but this is how it says our motto, fellowship, but this is how they do the punctuation. And I think about it every day. What quote does that quote belong to?
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's so good.
That's so good.
Their motto is them quoting themselves saying fellowship.
Fellowship. Our motto, when we say fellowship, that's our motto. Also, I'm not going to close the whole quote. Just
yeah.
It's so good.
It's a perfect sign.
Oh, that's incredible. All right, let's time about this. We should be fine.
Oh, time about this, baby.
All right. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do 43 seconds. Okay.